Have you ever seen a PMP exam question where every answer looks correct and you just stare at the screen like, okay, but which one do they want? If yes, then this video is exactly what you need. I have some golden tips that can completely change how you choose the best answer. These tips have been part of my best-selling course for many years and they've helped thousands of students pass their exams. They are fast, practical, and you can start using them immediately. I've divided these tips into two parts, predictive and agile. Today, we'll go through the golden tips for predictive questions. And don't worry, in the next video, we'll do the same for agile questions. So don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss it. Alright, ready? Let's make predictive questions much easier. Before we begin, I am Sabri C, founder of casePM Academy and Land of Management Academy. I teach the best-selling PMP exam prep course on Udemy, where thousands of students have already passed their exams successfully. Okay, here is the first tip. This is about change requests. If the project management plan has not been approved yet, and we want to make a change in any component of this non-approved plan, then we do not need to create a change request. For example, if we need to make a change in the budget before the project management plan is approved, we can simply make the change without creating a change request. However, after the project management plan is approved, any change we want to make in any component of the project management plan always requires a change request. So, if we want to change the budget after the project management plan has been approved, we must first create a change request and wait for its approval before applying the change. Now, do we need to create a change request if we want to make a change in a project document? Well, if the change will affect any component of the approved project management plan, then yes, we do need to create a change request. But if the change in the project document does not cause any impact on any component of the project management plan, then we don't need to create a change request. Also, we do not create change requests for documents that are regularly updated. These documents are meant to reflect the current status of something. For example, if an issue occurs and we need to update the issue log, we can update it directly without a change request. However, if this issue requires a change in the project management plan, then a change request must be created not for updating the issue log, but for modifying the project management plan. It may sound a bit confusing at first, but once the logic is understood, it becomes very clear. When we create a change request, it has to go through the integrated change control process and must be evaluated by considering all aspects of the project. For example, if we want to change the scope, we submit a change request to the change control board or another authorized party responsible for evaluating the change request. They will assess the impact of the change on schedule, cost, risk, quality, and other affected areas before making a decision. Finally, to apply the change request must be approved. If the change request is not approved, we cannot apply the change. So, if the question says that the customer is asking for an immediate change, but the approval process may take time, should you apply the change or not? In predictive environments, you must always wait for the approval. You cannot apply the change without an approved change request. Please don't forget this. Okay, here comes another golden tip. We must do exactly what is written in the scope. We should not do less and we should not do more. Doing more than what is written in the scope is called gold plating and it is not allowed. In predictive environments, we don't like to change the scope as we do in agile environments. Although this is the case, it is still possible to make a change to the scope, but it requires a change request. Of course, I assume we have an approved project management plan. Please note that this change request has to be evaluated by considering all aspects of the project. Alright, our next golden tip is about plans and planning. Planning is very crucial in predictive environments. I'm not talking only about management plans. I'm talking about any kind of plan. We always have a plan for almost everything, and we should always have a plan. We want to predict everything as much as we can, and for this reason, planning is very important for us. We should never ever take immediate action. We always need to determine a strategy or create a plan before taking any action. This is true even in urgent situations. I mean, whether it is urgent or not, we should never act immediately. We need to have a strategy or a plan first. If it is not urgent, we can create a detailed plan. If it is urgent, we may not have time to create a detailed plan, so at least we need to determine a strategy on how to approach the situation. For example, think about an issue that occurs due to a risk that is not defined in the risk register. To solve this issue, we first need to determine a strategy to identify and solve the root cause. So, when answering such questions in the exam, we need to choose the best option that reflects this approach. This is also true for workarounds. A workaround is an immediate response that we implement without a pre existing plan. Yes, we don't have a plan, but please note that we still need to determine a strategy before applying a workaround. Okay, since planning is very important, we should always follow the plan. Otherwise, why did we create it in the first place, right? If we want to make a change to the approved project management plan, then we need to create a change request. We already talked about this. Now, let's talk about stakeholders. Stakeholder is a general term we use for anyone who affects the project or is affected by the project. Therefore, the customer, the sponsor, the project manager, and the functional managers are some of the key stakeholders. At the very beginning of the project, we need to identify as many stakeholders as we can because forgotten stakeholders may later come with their requirements. And sometimes these new requirements may force us to add additional scope, additional time, and additional cost. Although this is the case, we may still have new stakeholders during the project. For example, a new team member may join the project team. Therefore, we can say that most but not all stakeholders are identified at the beginning of the project, and throughout the project, we may continue to identify new stakeholders. During the project, our goal is to engage stakeholders in the project. For some stakeholders, sending emails may be enough, but for others, we may need to put more effort into engagement. To create a better plan on how to engage stakeholders, we need to analyze and understand their needs and requirements. In other words, stakeholders' needs and requirements are very important. We must evaluate them to engage stakeholders effectively in the project. Then, by considering these needs and requirements, we need to categorize the stakeholders by using tools like the Power Interest Grid, the Stakeholder Cube, and so on, and deal with them according to these categories. Here, please note that we need to have a strategy for how to deal with them. In other words, to effectively engage the stakeholders, we need to determine an engagement strategy first. Then, we will execute this strategy during the project. Using communication regularly increases stakeholder engagement. Therefore, if a stakeholder's engagement is not at the desired level, we can consider inviting this stakeholder to meetings and presentations more often, and we may consider conducting more face-to-face conversations as well. These kinds of actions can help increase stakeholder engagement. Making stakeholders feel that we care about them increases engagement. Besides this, demonstrating positive behavior also increases engagement. If we are honest, respectful, and trustworthy, stakeholders are more likely to be engaged in the project. Now, let's talk about conflict management. During the project, we try to avoid conflicts, but no matter how hard we try, we cannot prevent them completely. So we need to know how to deal with conflicts effectively. In the exam, you will definitely encounter questions about conflict management. For example, they may describe you a situation in which some people are in conflict with each other and ask you what to do. When answering such questions, always aim to decrease negative outcomes and increase positive outcomes. This is the purpose of conflict management. And this is the high level strategy you should follow when answering such questions on the exam. If an option reduces more negative results and or increases more positive results, then most likely it is the best option to deal with that conflict. When dealing with conflicts, first of all, you need to understand the source and the stage of the conflict very well. What is the source of the conflict? Is it time, priorities, or resources? Maybe it is due to cultural differences. The stage of the conflict is also important. For example, if the conflict has just started, maybe the individuals involved can resolve it on their own. So, without understanding the source and the stage, you cannot determine the best way to handle the conflict. Then, we need to find the root cause. And by considering the root cause, we will determine and apply the most suitable conflict resolution technique. Okay, when dealing with conflicts, always consider the project objectives. This is important. If the solution you apply satisfies someone but contradicts the project objectives, then it is not the best solution. Your solution should always be aligned with the project objectives. Please don't forget. The next golden tip I would like to talk about is management style in predictive projects. When answering predictive environment questions like, as the project manager, what should you do next? Please consider the rules I will provide you in just a few seconds. These are very simple and easy to remember rules, and they can be very helpful when trying to find the best answer for such questions. Here is the first rule. When answering questions in the exam, always prefer the most inclusive and collaborative option. We like the inclusive and collaborative approach the most. Please don't forget. For example, if you're about to make a decision, don't think like, I am the project manager and I must make all the decisions by myself without asking anyone. This is not the correct management style. Instead, consider discussing your options with other team members or key stakeholders and make your decision by considering their opinions. Similarly, when there is a conflict between two team members, you need to listen to both of them. Listening to only one side and ignoring the other is not the right approach. You need to find the most inclusive solution when managing conflicts. This also applies when trying to solve a problem. For example, if there is an issue with technical drawings, do not try to fix it alone without asking for input from your team. Someone else may have a better idea. As I said, always be inclusive and collaborative. Okay, here is the second rule. We prefer the win-win option. If one party is losing while the other is winning, then most likely this is not the best option. For example, if you are the buyer, you shouldn't create a contract that only protects your side while ignoring the seller's rights. Or when negotiating with a potential subcontractor, your decisions should consider the interests of both parties. This is not a win-lose situation. The third rule. Preventing a problem is always better than dealing with the problem. When creating our plans, determining strategies, or making decisions, we should think about potential risks and take precautions before issues occur. If there is an option that prevents the issue, that option is better than trying to solve the issue after it happens. Please don't forget this. In predictive environments, the project manager's key responsibility is integration management. We are the ones who integrate everything in the project. We should not focus on only one area and ignore the others. All processes are connected and an issue in one area may affect several others. For example, a scheduling issue may affect the project budget, or a quality issue may affect the schedule. Because of this, the project manager should always consider all components of the project when making decisions, planning, or determining strategies. The fifth rule: project management is about achieving project objectives. In other words, whatever we do it to reach the project goals. If anything is not aligned with the project objectives, then we should not do it. Please don't forget this. For example, let's say someone proposes a change. If this change is not aligned with the project objectives, then you should not create a change request. Likewise, if there is a change request that is not aligned with the project objectives, the change control board should not approve it. This also applies to decision making. When making a decision, always consider the project objectives. The decision that best supports the project objectives is the correct decision. If a decision does not help achieve the project objectives, then it is not a good one. Therefore, in general, if something contributes to the project objectives, then we like that thing. Similarly, if something provides value to the project, again, we like that thing. The opposite is also true. I mean, if something goes against the project objectives or does not provide any value to the project, then we don't like that thing. Please don't forget this when trying to find the best answer. When managing your team or engaging stakeholders, use your emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is about influencing the emotions of others by managing your own emotions, and it makes managing conflicts and solving problems much easier. To do this effectively, we first need to understand the personality types of the people we work with and then interact with them based on those personality types. I will create videos about how to identify different personality types and how to communicate with each type effectively. So don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell to make sure you don't miss those videos. In project management, there are several processes that we follow. These processes should be tailored according to the needs of the project. In other words, we need to make the necessary adjustments to make the processes suitable for our project. If we do not need a process, then we will not apply it. Or if a process needs to be simplified, then we should simplify it. During the project, we may need to tailor processes again if conditions change. For example, if our project grows so large that a single cost controller is replaced by an entire cost control department, we may need to tailor the cost management processes and possibly other processes as well to fit the new situation. All identified risks, including both positive and negative risks, should be listed in the risk register at the beginning of the project. If new risks appear during the project, they should be added to the risk register. Also, existing risks should be reviewed and updated regularly. The lessons learned register is a living document and should be updated continuously. Whenever we learn a new lesson, we need to document it in the lessons learned register. It includes lessons learned from previous projects as well as lessons from the current project. Please note that these lessons will be transferred to future projects. When determining communication methods and types, we must consider the communication needs and requirements of stakeholders. Therefore, analyzing stakeholder needs and requirements is crucial for effective communication management. No matter whether a project is completed successfully or not, every project must be formally closed. If it is cancelled or terminated, it still needs to be closed. If it is completed successfully, again, it must be closed by formally applying the close project or phase process. This is mandatory. Alright, that's it for our golden tips for predictive questions. I hope this helped you see how to choose the best answer, not just the correct one. In the next video, we'll go through the golden tips for agile questions, and those are just as important because the exam mixes predictive and agile together all the time. So if you don't want to miss that, Make sure you are subscribed and the bell is turned on. Trust me, that next video will make Agile questions much easier too. Thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.